Hey everybody, I just wanted to give a little quick announcement to remind you, if you don't already know, I've got a new book coming out and I'm very, very excited about it. It's called Launchpad, The Countdown to Writing Your Book, and it is coming out on February 28th, 2023. It's an anthology of wonderful, wonderful chapters that are giving you everything you need in order to write that first book, or if you're needing a little bit of encouragement to jumpstart your career, it's got everything you need. We take you through right from the beginning about researching your story, outlining your story, working with a coach to help give accountability for your story, through the craft elements and what you need, that you absolutely need to have in your draft in order for it to work, and then latterly how you think about publishing or querying your book. It's got everything that you need. And what's also exciting about this is book one of a trilogy. So book two will be all about publishing your book, and book three is all about marketing your book. But book one, Launchpad, The Countdown to Writing Your Book, is out on February 28th, 2023, and it's available wherever you buy your books. But if you want to find out more, go to launchpadcountdown.com, launchpadcountdown.com, and you'll get to know more about the book, you'll meet the contributors, and you'll also be able to order your copy. I'm so excited! But for now, let's crack on with the show. Hey everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Turning Readers into Writers. And today I'm sort of going to like a foundational thing, I suppose, but really right at the beginning of your writing life, it's important that you set time aside to write. Otherwise, no writing gets done, and otherwise the book never gets finished. And I know this can be a slightly touchy subject for people because there's that pressure, there's that feeling of there being pressure to sit down, to get your bum in the chair, to do the writing, to make space, make time in your week to write. And when you're already living a busy life, if you've got a full-time job, or you've full-time parenting, or a full-time carer, or a mix of all those things, then it can really feel like a huge pressure to then find time to sit down and write every week, or as some people will believe, you have to write every day. So I thought this was a really important topic to speak into. Now, I'm a fairly organised person, and there's a degree to which I like routine. So for me, when I'm writing, particularly when I'm first drafting, because this is I'm more rigid about it when I'm first drafting. So when I'm first drafting, I like to write every Monday to Friday, and I like to write for 2 hours a day, sometimes up to 3, depending either if I'm in the flow and it's all going well, or I've struggled to write my chapter, and so I need to stay a bit longer and just keep plodding on with it. That's my preferred routine when I am first drafting, and it's certainly the way I encourage people to write if it's at all possible. Now, the reasons I encourage people to write in this way is that the more regularly you can spend time with your book, believe it or not, the easier it becomes. Because you don't have to remind yourself of what you wrote the day before. You don't have to remind yourself who the characters are, where it's set, how far along in the novel you got with your draft, all those little basic things that stop you from making progress, that sort of they stop you from getting into the flow of writing. I try to eliminate those, and so if you're writing regularly, pretty much every day, then you reduce those barriers to you starting your book quickly and easily, starting the writing session quickly and easily, and getting into the flow quickly. So that's the way I like to do my first drafting. I do appreciate the fact that I consider myself a full-time writer, in that I can write at any point of the day that works for me. For me, I write in the morning. That's when I'm my most creative. For others, it's mid-afternoon. For others, it's evening, in the middle of the night. That's when they're most creative. In fact, I know my coach, my book coach, she's told me that sort of midnight to 2 or 3 in the morning, that is her most productive time. She loves that because it's really quiet. There's no one to disturb. She feels that she knows she's done everything in the day and there's nothing hanging over her head, but acknowledges that, you know, working a day job, that's not conducive to it. So she has to find other ways of doing it, and she has to make herself write at other times of the day that isn't her naturally most creative time. So there's always pros and cons. So one of the things I'd love for you to figure out and understand for yourself, and just observe for yourself, when do you feel you're most awake during the day? When does your brain feel it's most creative? Is it possible for you to do some writing in those times, in those more creative times? Because if you are able to do it, it does make things a lot easier, because you're naturally in that space and you don't need to force yourself to get creative. So yes, so observing that time of day that you notice is best for you. And then if you are able to write every day, I absolutely recommend that, just for consistency's sake. It's not for breaking any records or being a proper writer in inverted commas. It's simply for you to stay connected to your novel. One of my old mentors would say, you want to stay close to the fire. And when you're able to write or spend time with your book every day or nearly every day, then you stay close to the fire, and it's easier to kind of get into that creative mold, and it reduces the barriers you have towards doing the writing and doing the thinking as well. So if you're in a lucky position like me where you do get to write full time, most authors I know, full-time writing is 2 to 3 hours a day. The majority of writers that I know, that is the reality of being a full-time writer. It's 2 to 3 hours a day. There are a lot of indie writers, career authors, who are really killing it out there, who have 100 or more books out there. They don't, obviously. They are writing a lot more. They are writing more like 6 hours a day to 8 hours a day. That's what they do. And that's been a conscious decision that they've made. They have made the decision that they want to build their back catalogue as quickly as they can, and they know that that is going to take a lot of time and effort from them, but they're ready to do it. They're willing to do it. They know that this is what it takes to get them to where they want to be, so that they can reap the rewards later. So I was listening to a talk by Sarah Nofke, I think it is. She writes paranormal... I don't think it's paranormal romance, but paranormal stories. And she talked about how, she's written 180 books now, maybe more by now. And that was a very conscious decision on her part, that she was going to nail this. That this is what she wanted. She wanted to be a writer. She wanted to be a career author. She wanted to earn her living from her writing. So that was it. I'm putting in the hours, she said to herself. And she made that commitment to herself. And she's not alone in that. There are lots of career authors who are publishing a book a month, sometimes more than a book a month, but certainly a lot faster pace than the traditional world, where you're maybe one book a year. You'll get published one book a year. So it's a very different beast, isn't it, being an indie author? But those indie authors have made a conscious decision to do that. Another writer who comes to mind is Lindsay Buroker. She's someone I reference a lot. She has written... She must have written well over 200 books by now. And that's what she does. She writes all the time. Every day, all day, that's what she does. And she loves it. And she's reaping the rewards because she's got so many series, she's got so many books. There's lots and lots of readers finding her at different places along her career. But again, it was a conscious decision she made, that that's what she wanted to do. I can think of Stephanie Green too, who made the conscious decision that she wanted to be a career author. She wanted to grow her backlist very quickly, and so took that time and made sure that that was her priority for sort of 12 to 24 months. That's what she focused on. And then once she'd built that back catalogue, then she could kind of take the pace off a bit. She could relax a little bit more, and enjoy the rewards of all that work that she's put in. Now, they are not the norm, I don't think. There are lots of career authors out there, but for most of us, particularly, for you at the start of your career, you're probably just learning how to write your first book. That's not where you are right now. You're not at that place. So don't feel that you have to do that, and don't feel that you even have to write 2 or 3 hours a day. That might not be open to you right now. It's just not within your remit right now. And you might not want to do that right now either. So that is fine. So you might be considering yourself perhaps more of a part-time writer, and that is where you need to be, and that works for you right now. So it might be that you have space in your diary 1 weekday in the week, maybe a Wednesday or a Thursday, something like that, and that's where you get to spend 60 to 90 minutes thinking about, jotting down ideas about writing your book, and you get to make progress that way. And then maybe in addition to that, you have some space on a Sunday afternoon, and you get to spend maybe 2 or 3 hours on your book on a Sunday afternoon, and that is fantastic, and that's working for you. It allows you not to feel the stress of having to write every day. It means you can do your job and still do your writing. It means you get to have your social life and do your writing. You get the best of both worlds. And you're still making progress with your novel. So obviously it's not the same pace that it might be if you were writing every day, but you're still making regular contributions to the manuscript, and you're still making steps forward, which is so important. Making the progress is more important than how much you write in a week. It's just being consistently moving forwards. But then you might be a different kind of writer altogether, and you might be a sprinter. And I have to admit, this is not a way that I could work. I'd find this really hard, but I know that it does work for some writers. And so you might be the type of writer who writes nothing for 5 or 6 weeks. Just nothing. The ideas are probably mulling around in the back of your head, but you're not writing anything, and perhaps don't feel like you're kind of making progress, but all that thinking is going on. And then you'll have this burst, a big burst of energy, a big burst of time, and you binge write, if you like, and you might spend 2 whole days where you do nothing but write, and you stay up late, and you eat junk food because you just keep writing, and then at the end of those 2 days you're exhausted and you need to recuperate, and then you maybe don't do anything for another 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. So you're writing in those big bursts, making big bits of progress, but then stopping, having time away, and then coming back with another big burst, making lots of progress, and then stopping. A lady in my community was saying that that's how she writes, and it's working well for her. She's written 2 books, so it's a process that works for her. This is her process, and she maximizes it and makes sure she writes her book. I believe Cheryl Strayed, who wrote Wild, I believe that's the way that she writes as well. So she doesn't write every day or every week. She has bursts of energy and binge writes for a period of time, and then she leaves it for a while. Now, some of you might be thinking, ooh, that sounds good. I get to wait until the muse hits me, and then I get to write. I just want to give a word of caution with that because yeah, you can do, and I know a few poets, for example, who do wait until the muse hits them, and then they have the poem just comes out, and it works well for them. But the key thing I want you to hear about Cheryl Strayed, about the poet I'm just mentioning just now, and also the lady in my community, is that they are doing the work. So they are writing, they are finishing their projects, they are doing what they need to do. They're not using the sprinting, they're not using the muse as an excuse not to do it, but just to talk about it. There's a big difference. So I want you, only you know the answer to this for yourself. but I want you to kind of dig into your gut instinct here, listen to your intuition, and know if the idea of sprinting appeals to you, because you might be able to get away with never actually writing and never finishing a project. Is that true? Do you feel that in your body? Or actually, is that a genuine way that you can write and it would fit in with your lifestyle? Only you know. But choose the one where you know you're going to get the result, where you know you're going to get the end product, that you'll finish, at the very least, finish the first draft. Even if you decide not to go on and revise it, finishing a project, as Nina Amir said to me, is as important as starting it. You've got to practice finishing your books. So, 3 different ways of structuring your time or making space in your life for your writing. So either writing full time, you're writing every day 2 or 3 hours, or if you're a career author, you're writing 4, 5, 6, 7 hours a day. You're writing part time, so maybe 1 evening a week and 1 afternoon a week, and you get to fit that in around the rest of your obligations of life. And then there's the sprinters. So when you wait for the muse to hit, and when it does, boom, you go for it. You are off to the races. There is no stopping you until you are drained. There's nothing left in the tank, and then you take another break. So 3 very, very different approaches. I did want to quickly just talk about how you kind of measure your progress. So for some people, it's through word count, and others it's through time. I'm someone who likes the word count. That really works for me. I know that if I haven't reached the word count that I need for that particular scene or chapter, it's because I'm missing something. So I know then, okay, I get to push on. I get to look at where I'm missing something in that scene, and then I can add to it, because I know my routine, my process, and the length of chapters and scenes I write is around about 2,500. So as long as I have that, then I know I've got enough depth in my chapter, enough going on, I'm happy with it. So that for me is success for the day. That for me makes me feel good. You might be very, very different. And in fact, you hate the idea of a word count. That just sends shivers down your spine. And it maybe feels like a horribly either restrictive or formulaic way of writing. And instead, you prefer to measure it in time rather than words. And that's fine as well. It's absolutely fine. You've got to find the way that works best for you. And if you know that if you've got 40 minutes in which to do the writing that you need to do, and you know in yourself that you make the most of that time, and when you finish the writing session you feel good about it, that you come away feeling positive and feel like you've made progress and feel rejuvenated, because certainly writing does that for me. It makes me feel rejuvenated. So if you come away from your sessions feeling that way, then that's the most important thing. So don't feel constrained that you've got to do word counts, or you've got to do time counts. It's what works for you. And I mentioned there, that feeling of feeling rejuvenated after each session. And I feel that way even when I've had a bad writing session. Even when things haven't gone to plan, even when I've felt stifled and I've felt a bit blocked with a scene, and I didn't know how that conversation was going to go between my 2 characters, and I've come away not feeling great about it, I still feel rejuvenated. And that's because the act of writing itself does a lot for me mentally. It's my form of meditation. It takes me out of the real world. It stops me worrying about everything else that's going on in my life, and I just get to focus on that scene at that moment in time. I'm living in the now. I'm not living in the past or in the future. I'm living in the now of that scene, and so that is very meditative for me. And even if I come away and the scene hasn't been great, not gone the way I planned, I still know I've made progress. I still know I have at least done the thinking about it, even if the words are not there on the page. I know I've devoted time to it. I've been thinking about it. I've been planning. I've been ruminating. I've been mulling things over. And so that is progress. that is still a win for me. And so I want you to hear that, so that if you find yourself in the same situation where the session hasn't gone as you'd planned and you've gotten stuck with something, it's still a win because you've still made the time, you've got your butt in the chair, you've done some thinking, you've jotted down some notes, you've written a scene that you maybe are going to delete afterwards, but you had to write that scene to know that it was wrong. You had to write that scene to know that that's not the way you want the story to go. And so it's never a waste. It's always part of the process. It's always leading you towards where you want to go. So please do know that that is still a win. All right, I will leave it there for today. I hope that's been useful. I hope you've seen that there are different ways to approach your writing, whether it be when you write or the time that you write and how you measure your progress. It's all individual to each of us. We all have our own way of working. If it has been useful to you, please do subscribe to the podcast. And if you're already a subscriber, please do consider leaving a review, because it always helps new people find us if you can do that wherever you get your podcasts from. But from me for now, take care, and I'll see you next time.